Part 2. According to the Telegraph UK under Listen Up, most European men descended from just 3 ancestors. Subtitle: Almost 2 out of 3 modern European men, 64%, were descended from just 3 Bronze Age males. May 20th, 2015. Quote, most European men descended from just 3 Bronze Age dominant forefathers who began a population explosion several thousand years ago. Stop. Bingo. According to Google and myself, population explosion means, quote, a sudden large increase in the size of a population. And that can only mean one of 2 things. The first is all of a sudden and out of the blue, everyone on earth started rocking the cradle of love at the same time. Or there were new and fresh people, along with their gods, ascending upon the earth from the depths of Hades and the sea during different time frames in history. Take your pick. But while you're picking, maybe what they say next will help your decision. Quote, a research team from the University of Leicester looked at the DNA sequences of 334 men from 17 European and Middle Eastern populations. The study shows that almost 2 out of 3 modern European men, 64%, were descended from just 3 males. Archaeologists have been puzzled about whether European populations started to surge in the Stone Age or later. But the new research appears to suggest that there was a rapid expansion of communities in the succeeding Bronze Age. It appears that between 2,000 and 4,000 years ago, there was a rate explosion in the size of populations from the Balkans to the British Isles. Professor Mark Joblin from the Department of Genetics at Leicester University said, personal quote, the population expansion falls within the Bronze Age, which involved changes in burial practices, the spread of horse riding, and developments in weaponry. Dominant males linked with these cultures could be responsible for the Y chromosome patterns we see today. Stop. Bingo. This can only mean Attila the Hun was also of the same exact pure blood Y chromosome elite, with his own upgrade virus to inject into the last wave of clones. This also proves they either created or hybridized what we now consider horses. They must have looked like demons riding upon demons to our ancestors. Remember, the Hyksos brought the horse and chariot to the Egyptians. This is the reason why they ruled over 80% of the country. Who could stand before a war horse trained for battle? Let's continue, please. Quote, now the team is hoping to study skeletal remains to see if they can pinpoint the exact period that triggered the sudden population explosion. Study lead author Chahara Batini from the University of Leicester's Department of Genetics added, personal quote, given the cultural complexity of the Bronze Age, it's difficult to link a particular event to the population growth that we infer. But Y chromosome DNA sequences from skeletal remains are becoming available, and this will help us understand what happened and when. Example, but the triple C's can tell you exactly what's happening. The explosion is due to a continuous wave of diversified clones from the netherworld, so numerous and powerful they were able to shadow and topple established kingdoms at will. Again, no tribe or combination of tribes could suddenly assemble in this way without the superpowers keeping their eyes open for them. No, these people were nowhere on the face of the earth to begin with. And to show you there is nothing new under the sun, check this out. Please remember, no matter how improbable the outcome is, the facts don't lie. Saying that, according to the liberal Huffington Post under population explosion, cutting to the facts and only the facts, ma'am. Quote, as we jump into the subject, first I will mention that there are no exact or 100% accurate figures, but this research from the UN Worldometers and various sources gives us a perspective of the past, present, and future. Now, let's go way back. At the dawn of agriculture, about 8000 BC, the population of the world was approximately 5 million people. Over the 8,000 year period up to 1 AD, it grew to over 300 million with a growth rate of under 0.05% per year. A tremendous change occurred with the Industrial Revolution, whereas it had taken all of humanity until around 1800 for the world population to reach 1 billion. The second billion was achieved in only 130 years, 1930. The third billion in less than 30 years, 1959. The fourth billion in 15 years, 1974. And the fifth billion in only 13 years, 1987. During the 20th century alone, the population of the world has grown from 1.65 billion to 6 billion. In 1970, there were roughly half as many people in the world as there are now. Example, I have heard just about every excuse used to justify these increases in society. But upon further review of the least common denominator kind, their excuses don't add up whatsoever. Think about it like a human for just a minute. To say there is a logical explanation for being a baby boomer is like saying men didn't get buck wild with their wives before the war. And if history dictates, men had more children before the war than after the wars. Not only that, there were more men around to have children in the first place before the wars than the few that survived intact to have children after the wars. Nothing about baby boomers makes logical sense. How do you increase while decreasing exponentially? It's as though war is used to increase their numbers. Likewise, you can't give the excuse that life expectancy has increased because we have had so many deaths prematurely due to wars over the last 140 years to negate any reliable data, nor have you factored in the increase in vice deaths. You know, drugs, HIV, car deaths, butt injection deaths, etc. And besides, life expectancy and quality of life are two totally different things, meaning living longer to be a slave isn't truly living. And that's for the white industrialized forced labor child merchant in the North as well. Know what I mean? Wait a minute. That's hip hop for do you know what I mean? Again, you can look at the data any way you want to look at it. But bottom line is, during the last 150 years in world history, a period where more people died in 3 wars than all wars combined in the history of mankind, somehow, in some way, the population sprang up 6-fold. It's as though, somehow, epidemic diseases are being used to increase their numbers also. Question, could the epidemic disease such as the bubonic plague that was supposed to wipe out half of Europe be a result of an unintended consequences, so to speak, of coming in contact with something truly foreign? You know, like Cortez the Killer did the Native Americans, or intentional consequences like the Americans did the Native Americans? It was just a question. But either way you look at it, would the population's numbers skyrocket? Before you discount these words as mere babblings of a fool, this concept has been implemented before, in recent time at that, though it not be with humans. Remember the mad cow disease epidemic not too long ago? What was the ultimate solution used? Who said that? Who said cloning? Right, well, Miss Ivy, Right. The European Union decided to kill all the cows in Europe and replenish the earth with cloned cows from the University of Georgia. Yep, Google it. But now that I hopefully have you cornered, cold, lonely, and scared, remember our first dealings with the sea people when we discovered there was a land assault that happened just before the sea assault took place? You remember when we first discovered the equivalent of America, Russia, Great Britain, and half of China was sacked and taken over within a 50-year period? Well, in these next few videos, I want to show you exactly who, what, where, and how everything went down. And now that we have a slender of understanding of perception under our belts, check out what they have been telling us all along. Things like this, for instance.